Come on in, welcome to Idled Out, where we talk all things Survivor. My name is Luke, and today we are talking about Survivor's greatest revenge arcs. Revenge, it's one of life's greatest pleasures. Nothing feels better than getting back at those who've wronged you. I'm sorry, but grace and forgiveness simply do not feel as good. In a cutthroat game like Survivor, things are no different. But surprisingly, getting petty revenge on one's enemies isn't that common. Turning your Survivor game into a Kill Bill-style hit list is often not a great move, and most players have the good sense to let slights against them roll off their back. Not these icons. These 5 Survivor players said, "Screw the game. I'm getting justice." And justice was had. So grab some cold cuts, go get that snake motherfucker John, and join me as we look at 5 survivors who got revenge. Basically.
For revenge, basically.
At number 5 is Chris getting revenge for the rest of his alliance in Survivor Vanuatu. At the merge of Vanuatu, the all-male Fat 5 alliance was down to just the Fat 4, outnumbered 6-4 against the women. Bonded by their slightly older age and slightly expanded beer bellies, this was the dominant alliance on original Lepevi and one of the strongest alliances this season. But a series of post-swap blunders put the men at a disadvantage at the merge, and one by one, this tight foursome was picked off by the women, until only Chris remained. This hurt Chris. These were his friends. Well, not so much Rory, but Chad and Sarge. This was in the days before idols, and the women he thought were his allies, Twyla and Julie, had made their decision to stay with the women. All he could do is sit and watch helplessly as his friends were voted out. And so, as the last man standing, Chris vowed revenge on the women.
I'm gonna burn every one of them. Just let them open a door. This is for you, not against you.
Chris managed to exploit the cracks between this shaky women's alliance, leveraging the different factions against one another to get his way on basically every vote from here on out. The thing about Chris is, he reveled in the betrayals. He gleefully cut the women because they gleefully cut his friends. He told lies he didn't really need to tell. He began openly mocking them. This is not business, it's strictly personal. And with each successful elimination, he became more and more emboldened. I mean, he convinced Eliza he'd force a tie at Final 4 for no other reason than to be as big a dick as possible. Ironically, by shifting his focus from winning to divine justice, Chris ended up getting to the end, earning the begrudging respect of the jury, and actually winning the game. In his hopeless situation, lesser players would give up. But Chris didn't, and instead he worked overtime to outwit his enemies. This is in contrast to certain players in Survivor 45 in similar, seemingly hopeless situations, who instead chose to outquit their enemies. At number 4 is Lil getting revenge for herself in Survivor Pearl Islands. Survivor says they don't cast people simply as early game boot fodder. Exhibit A why I don't believe that, at least back in the day. There is no universe where Lil isn't one of the first few people voted out of the Morgan tribe. Even if this tribe hit an immunity streak, they'd probably just shove her down a well. No one on Morgan outside of Skinny Ryan liked her, so it was no surprise when Lil was voted out third. The only surprise was that it took that long. On her way out the door, she had only one request to tribe leader Andrew Savage. Let me know if it's me. This is the pre-idol era. Lil had no agency on the tribe. She just wanted a heads up that she's going home, a request which was not honored. Oh, and Lil, in the hypothetical case that you do go home, you should be happy because it means the 5 of us get to continue in the game without you. Oh, and Lil, also, fuck you. Now, it's worth noting that Savage has long claimed he did tell Lil she was going and it just wasn't shown. Lil says otherwise. Frankly, I'm inclined to believe her. Lil should have been a footnote in Survivor history. But instead, for the first time ever, eliminated players could re-enter the game at the merge, and Lil, along with Burton, came back into the game, and she's got vengeance on her mind. The same Morgan clique that voted Lil out before is the same clique that now desperately needs her vote at the merge just to stay alive, and it becomes increasingly clear throughout the day that they won't be getting it. In a truly Shakespearean moment, before Tribal Council, Savage has just one request. Lil, can you let me know if it's me before the vote?
You let me know before.
I'll jump off the horse.
Remember I asked you to let me know before, and you didn't?
Yeah, consider the favor returned. It's one of the most ice-cold moments in Survivor history, as Lil treats Savage the same way he treated her. For this brief moment, she's genuinely cool. I mean, as cool as you can be in a scout uniform as an adult. At number 3 is Austin getting revenge for those sandwiches in Survivor 45. They say revenge is a dish best served cold, and nothing's colder than this sandwich. In episode 5 of Survivor 45, one person from each tribe, Austin, J. Maya, and Kelly, were sent on a journey. A common feature of New Era Survivor, on this journey, they're tasked with making their way up this cliff, and along the way, they're supposed to get to know the players from the other tribes. One thing Kelly and Jay apparently did not get to know about Austin: he loves sandwiches. At the top of the cliff, these three are given a strategic choice. They can share an amulet advantage between the three of them, or they can have a sandwich. This is one of the rare moments in Survivor when taking the food is the wiser option. The amulet advantage is only a bullseye, incentivizing the other two players to take you out. Austin realizes this and pushes for sandwiches. Hard. I mean, this is the most appetizing food has ever looked on Survivor. Granted, low bar, but Jay in particular pushes really hard for the amulet, and so Austin concedes. Fine, I'll take this free amulet. Can't a man walk down the beach without being offered a Survivor advantage these days? Now, I thought that would be the end of the sandwiches, but later in confessional, like Ross from Friends, Austin is still dreaming of his lost sandwich, and he vows revenge. Once everyone is together on the same beach, Jay's name starts getting thrown around, and Austin is more than happy to take that ball and run with it. And look at this guy. He can run far. Despite Austin's best efforts, eventually Bruce shifts the target to Caleb, but a successful Caleb shot in the dark play means the tribe now needs a secondary target. And who better than Jay? The initial tribe consensus. Don Provolone sends his regards. At number 2 is Sandra getting revenge for Rupert in Survivor Pearl Islands. In Pearl Islands, Sandra, Krista, and Rupert were an unbreakable trio, initial tribe outsiders who seized control of the Drake tribe and became the unlikely alliance running the show. At the merge, they thought they had control of the game after the aforementioned Lil flipped to their side. But if they had a fatal flaw, it was their overconfidence. If they had another fatal flaw, it was putting their trust in a guy who consistently looks like he's waking up from a 3-day bender and who ironically calls himself Fair Play. I mean, the writing was on the wall with this one. You almost can't be mad. At the final 8, Fairplay and Burton flipped to the Morgan tribe to vote off the head of the alliance, Rupert, in a shocking elimination. Now, normally when your ally is voted out, what most players do is swallow their pride, come back to camp, and congratulate everyone else on a blindside well played. Sandra is not most players.
Where's that snake mother John? I tell you what, can't nobody trust that bitch right there.
Sandra busts Fairplay's chops harder than Danny Bonaducci at a reality TV awards show, mercilessly laying into him for his betrayal. Sandra's revenge for this is my favorite kind of revenge, petty revenge. She hides all of the fish Rupert caught, arguing that the people who just voted him out don't deserve the fruits of his labor. Then she hides all the camp tools and supplies purely out of spite. At Final 5, she pretends to work with Fairplay and Burton, just long enough to regain their trust so she can shove a knife in their backs, convincing them she's Drake Strong, only to turn around and vote out Burton with Lil and Dara. And after Lil wins final immunity, Lil votes off Fairplay, and Sandra and her go to final tribal council together. Every time Sandra's stepped onto the beaches of Survivor, there's been some element of vengeance paramount to her gameplay. But for me, the most satisfying revenge story is her first. Her petty revenge getting back at Fairplay and Burton for ending Rupert's dreams. She spilled their blood as easily as she spilled Rupert's fish. Survivor's greatest revenge story is Natalie getting revenge for Jeremy in Survivor San Juan del Sur. Natalie and Jeremy are one of the closer pairs of real-life friends to come out of Survivor. I'm just assuming here, but there's no other reason why he would vote for a first boot to win Winners at War other than being real-life BFFs. In their first season, they initially bonded over their loved ones being the first two boots on the other tribe, but their similar, no BS personalities and senses of humor quickly made them a pair in this game as dangerous and as close as any other. I mean, after a few weeks of knowing one another, they were already probably closer than John Rocker and Julie. At the merge, it looks like Natalie and Jeremy have a clear path to the end. They have numbers, they're in control of their alliance, they'd taken out the head of the other alliance. Then their allies, Jacqueline, John, Missy, and Baylor all flipped on them and voted Jeremy out. Okay, her twin sister? Whatever. But a new pal she met 3 weeks ago? Natalie is incensed, both with the other alliance, but especially with her allies for defecting. And she officially enters her Kill Bill era. She goes on the Jeremy Revenge Tour, first cutting 3 of the 4 players on the other alliance, then turning her sights on her own allies, wisely biding her time for the perfect moment to blindside John, who she viewed largely as the main flipper and catalyst for Jeremy's elimination. Natalie had more patience in pulling off this blindside than anyone I've ever seen. She laughed with John and Jacqueline, pledged fealty to them, shared wine in bed with them. She even convinced him to save himself with his idol at Final 9 just because it was too early for him to go. And she did this all while carefully plotting John's humiliating demise. The John blindside at Final 6 is inarguably one of the best ever. Natalie and Baylor carefully lull John into a false sense of security so he doesn't play his idol. And then Natalie somehow orchestrates a wild 2-2-2 vote between John, Jacqueline, and Keith, only to send John home 2-1 on the revote. That one's for Jeremy. This is the Red Wedding of Survivor. But unlike Game of Thrones, this season would go on to have a satisfying conclusion. Got nothing else for ya. To help me get lots of sandwiches in Austin's honor, like and subscribe, and I'll get you more Survivor content just like this. Until next time, don't get idled out.